I'm Amanda Mitchell, 26 years old, and currently the vice president of operations at one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. But just a few years ago, I was nothing more than an unpaid maid in my parents' home. For most of my life, I cooked, cleaned, and served their guests while they built their perfect image, dismissing my own needs and dreams. The irony? They finally realized my worth when Jackson Reynolds, the CEO they desperately wanted to impress, looked them straight in the eyes and called me boss. Before I dive into how my life transformed from unpaid family servant to respected executive, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt undervalued by the people who should cherish you most. Growing up in Brookline, a wealthy suburb of Boston, my life looked picture-perfect from the outside. Our colonial-style home with its manicured lawn and tasteful decor was the envy of the neighborhood. My father, Richard Mitchell, worked as an investment banker at a prestigious firm downtown, while my mother, Eleanor, sold high-end real estate to Boston's elite. They were the perfect power couple, ambitious, attractive, and absolutely obsessed with appearances. What no one saw was what happened behind our glossy front door. By age 8, I had a list of daily chores that would overwhelm most adults. Every morning began with making beds, emptying dishwashers, and preparing breakfast for everyone. After school, more chores awaited: vacuuming, dusting, laundry, and starting dinner preparations. My mother would inspect my work with a critical eye, pointing out missed spots and redoing tasks I hadn't completed to her exacting standards. "Amanda, if you can't properly fold a fitted sheet by now, how will you ever run a household of your own?" she would say, snatching the linen from my small hands and demonstrating for the 100th time. My younger brother Tyler, however, lived in a completely different reality. 3 years my junior, he was free to play video games, join sports teams, and hang out with friends while I worked. When I once asked why he didn't have chores too, my mother simply said, "Boys don't need to learn these things, Amanda. Besides, you're so much better at it." The stark difference in our treatment became painfully obvious during my parents' frequent dinner parties. While Tyler was allowed to make a brief appearance to charm the guests before retreating to his room with a plate of food, I was expected to help prepare the multi-course meals, serve the guests, and clean up afterward. I learned to navigate around adults with trays of hors d'oeuvres, refill wine glasses without being asked, and maintain a pleasant smile no matter how tired I was. My 10th birthday fell on a Saturday when my parents had invited the managing partner of my father's firm for dinner. I had been looking forward to my own small celebration, nothing fancy, just pizza and a movie with a few friends. But 3 days before, my mother informed me that my party would need to be postponed. "This dinner could mean a promotion for your father," she explained while handing me a list of groceries to purchase. "You understand how important that is for our family, don't you?" I did understand. I always understood. That Saturday, instead of blowing out candles with friends, I spent hours polishing silver and arranging flowers. When the guests arrived, the managing partner's wife noticed me setting out dessert plates in the kitchen. "Is this your daughter, Eleanor? She's so helpful." My mother beamed with pride. "Amanda is quite the little homemaker already. I don't know what I'd do without her." That night, after all the guests had left and the house was spotless again, I found a small cupcake with a candle on my bedside table and a note from my father. "Happy birthday, Mandy. Thanks for your help tonight." It was the only acknowledgement of my birthday that year. School became my sanctuary, the one place where I could escape the endless chores and expectations at home. I threw myself into academics, earning straight A's and joining every club that would have me. I organized school events, edited the yearbook, and even started a small business selling handmade greeting cards to teachers and students. But no matter how many achievements I brought home, they were met with indifference or, worse, seen as distractions from my real responsibilities. "That's nice, dear, but the living room needs vacuuming before the Andersons arrive," was my mother's response to my perfect SAT score. In junior year, I met Rachel Williams, whose parents invited me over for dinner one night after we'd worked late on a school project. I was shocked to see Rachel's mother thank her for setting the table and her father insist on washing dishes while telling us girls to finish our homework. After dinner, when I automatically started clearing plates, Rachel's mother gently took them from my hands. "You're a guest here, Amanda. Go relax with Rachel." I nearly cried at the simple kindness. That night gave me my first glimpse of what a normal parent-child relationship looked like, and it made the inequality in my own home even harder to bear. Despite my parents' lack of interest, I continued to excel in school activities, particularly those involving organization and planning. The school counselor, Mrs. Bennett, noticed my skills when I single-handedly rescued the junior prom after the committee fell apart due to infighting. "You have remarkable business acumen, Amanda," she told me after I'd negotiated better rates with vendors and reorganized the budget to include previously impossible extras. "Have you considered a business degree?" I hadn't, but her question planted a seed. For the first time, I began to see that the skills I'd developed managing my parents' household might actually be valuable in the real world. Perhaps there was a future beyond being my family's unpaid servant after all. By the time I turned 16, I was essentially running the Mitchell household. My morning routine started at 5 a.m., giving me time to prepare a full breakfast for everyone, pack lunches, and tidy up before school. I'd leave perfectly written notes for the cleaning lady who came twice a week, detailing additional tasks beyond her regular duties. After school, while other teenagers were at sports practice or hanging out with friends, I was grocery shopping with my mother's credit card, planning meals for the week, and preparing dinner. "Amanda, we're having the Caldwells over tomorrow night. I'm thinking that salmon dish you made last month," my mother would announce, never asking if I had other plans or homework to complete. My father was no better. He'd call from work with last-minute requests. "Mandy, my dress shirts need to be picked up from the cleaners before they close. And could you swing by the wine shop? We're out of that Cabernet I like." Somehow, despite all these responsibilities, I maintained a 4.0 GPA, served as class president, and managed the school's annual charity auction. Teachers praised my time management skills, never knowing they were born of necessity rather than natural talent. Senior year brought college applications and the hope of escape. I spent hours researching schools with strong business programs, writing essays between loads of laundry, and scheduling campus visits around my parents' social calendar. When acceptance letters arrived, including one from Wharton with a partial scholarship, my parents' reaction was lukewarm at best. "Philadelphia is so far," my mother said with a frown. "Boston University is perfectly adequate, and you could live at home and commute." The subtext was clear: who would manage their lives if I moved away? The breaking point came during senior prom season. As class president, I'd been instrumental in planning the event, securing an amazing venue and negotiating discounts that allowed us to have live music and professional photography within budget. I'd even been asked to the prom by James Parker, a kind, intelligent boy from my AP economics class. 2 weeks before the prom, my parents informed me that they'd be hosting a crucial dinner for potential investors in my father's new side business. The dinner was scheduled for prom night, and they needed me to help. "But I've been planning this for months," I protested. "I can't miss my own senior prom." "Don't be selfish, Amanda," my father replied. "This investment could set us up for retirement. Surely you can miss one dance." James was understanding when I cancelled, which somehow made it worse. The night of prom, while my classmates danced in their formal wear, I served cocktails to middle-aged businessmen in my mother's good apron. I overheard one guest ask who had catered the excellent meal. "Oh, our Amanda made everything," my mother replied proudly. "She's quite talented in the kitchen." Not once did she mention my academic achievements, my college acceptances, or the fact that I should have been at my senior prom that night. That summer, I took an internship at a local marketing firm, my first paying job. Although the position was entry-level and primarily involved data entry and coffee runs, it gave me a taste of independence. More importantly, it gave me leverage. "I can't prepare dinner on Tuesdays and Thursdays," I informed my parents. "I'll be at work until 6 p.m. They were displeased but couldn't argue with my commitment to building my resume for college. What I didn't tell them was that I was saving every penny of my earnings in a secret bank account, my escape fund. When August arrived and it was time to make college decisions, I finally stood my ground. "I'm accepting Wharton's offer," I announced at dinner. "The scholarship makes it possible, and it's the best business program in the country." "But how will we manage without you?" my mother asked, genuinely perplexed. "The same way other adults do," I replied, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. "You'll figure it out." In the weeks before my departure, the household chores mysteriously multiplied. Suddenly, my mother needed help reorganizing her closet. My father remembered long-delayed home maintenance projects that required my assistance. Even Tyler, now a spoiled teenager, made increased demands on my time. "Can you wash my jersey? I need it for tomorrow's game." "Where are my headphones? Can you find them?" It was a desperate attempt to remind me of my place in the family hierarchy, the reliable servant who anticipated and fulfilled everyone's needs without complaint. But for once, I had something they couldn't take away: my acceptance to Wharton and the promise of a different life. The day I left for college was remarkably anticlimactic. My father helped load my few belongings into the car, my mother gave me a distracted hug, and Tyler barely looked up from his video game to say goodbye. As we pulled out of the driveway, my mother called after me. "Don't forget to call if you need any advice on laundry or cooking." Not once did they say they would miss me. Arriving at Wharton was like stepping onto another planet. For the first time in my life, no one expected me to cook their meals or clean their messes. My freshman roommate, Zoe Hamilton, was shocked when she returned to our dorm to find I'd organized our shared space and made a schedule for common area cleaning. "You really don't need to do all this," she said, eyeing the color-coded calendar I'd created. "We could just take turns or, clean when things get dirty." The concept of such casual housekeeping was foreign to me. Nevertheless, I gradually adjusted to this new reality where my time was truly my own. I filled my schedule with classes, study groups, and part-time jobs, working at the campus bookstore, taking notes for disabled students, and weekend shifts at a local cafe. My upbringing had trained me to function on minimal sleep and maximum efficiency, which served me well in the demanding academic environment. During my sophomore year, I took a business strategy course taught by Professor Diane Matthews, a former executive who had left the corporate world to teach. She noticed my contributions in class discussions and my flawless project management skills during group assignments. After one particularly successful presentation, she asked me to stay behind. "Amanda, your analysis of that case study was exceptional. The way you identified operational inefficiencies and proposed solutions shows real talent." I thanked her awkwardly and used such specific praise. "Where did you learn to think so strategically about business operations?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. I couldn't very well tell this accomplished woman that I'd learned efficiency by managing my parents' household since childhood. Instead, I mentioned my experience organizing school events and my summer internship. Something in my hesitation must have revealed more than my words, because Professor Matthews gave me a searching look. "Whatever your background, you have a natural gift for systems thinking and resource allocation. I hope you'll consider operations management as a specialty." That conversation marked a turning point. Professor Matthews became my mentor, recommending books and case studies beyond our coursework and introducing me to her industry contacts. Under her guidance, I began to see my background not as a source of shame but as unusual preparation for a business career. "You've been managing a small enterprise for years," she pointed out when I finally shared some of my family history. "The principles are the same, just applied differently." During my junior year, I applied for an internship at TechVision, a promising startup developing innovative project management software. My interview with the founder, Sophia Wilson, was scheduled for 30 minutes but stretched to 2 hours as we discussed operational challenges facing growing companies. "Most students your age have theoretical knowledge but no practical experience," Sophia said as our meeting concluded. "You talk about resource allocation and workflow optimization like someone who's lived it." I was offered the internship on the spot, with a salary that meant I could finally quit my other part-time jobs. At TechVision, I thrived in the fast-paced environment. What began as a standard 3-month internship evolved into a permanent part-time position I maintained throughout my senior year, traveling between Philadelphia and Boston twice a month. My first major project involved reorganizing the company's customer onboarding process. The existing system was causing delays and client frustration. I mapped the entire workflow, identified bottlenecks, and implemented a streamlined process that reduced onboarding time by 60% and improved customer satisfaction scores. Sophia was impressed enough to put me in charge of internal operations while I was still technically an intern. By graduation, I had a full-time job offer as operations manager with a salary that made my eyes widen. "You've earned it," Sophia assured me. "Half our efficiency improvements this year came from your initiatives." The contrast between my professional recognition and continued treatment at home during holiday visits couldn't have been starker. Despite my new title and responsibilities, my parents still expected me to slip seamlessly back into my role as household manager during visits. "Amanda, since you're home for Thanksgiving, would you mind handling the dinner?" my mother asked, though it wasn't really a question. "I've invited the Hendersons and the Blakes. 16 people total." I spent that Thanksgiving break shopping, cooking, and cleaning while my parents socialized and my brother played video games. When one of the guests complimented the meal, my mother smiled and said, "Amanda has always been such a help in the kitchen." Not "Amanda has a successful career in tech." Not "Amanda graduated with honors from Wharton." Just "Amanda is helpful," as if that were my defining characteristic. That night, as I washed crystal wine glasses at 1 a.m., I made a decision: this would be the last holiday I spent as the family servant. I had worked too hard and come too far to revert to that role. The next morning, I booked a hotel for my Christmas visit, informing my parents that I would be staying there rather than in my old room. "But why waste money on a hotel?" my father protested. "It's not a waste," I replied calmly. "It's an investment in my mental health." They didn't understand, but for once, I didn't need them to. 2 years after graduation, at the age of 24, I was promoted to Director of Operations at TechVision. The company had grown exponentially, from a scrappy startup of 15 people to a respected firm with over 100 employees and a valuation approaching 9 figures. As the leadership team expanded, Sophia remained my strongest advocate, ensuring I received credit for the operational systems that had facilitated such rapid scaling. My apartment in Boston's South End became my sanctuary, a place entirely my own, decorated to my taste and maintained on my schedule. After years of living to serve others' needs, the simple freedom to leave dishes in the sink overnight or spend Sunday in pajamas felt revolutionary. As TechVision's profile rose in the tech community, so did awareness of my role in its success. I was invited to speak at industry conferences and profiled in a business magazine's 30 Under 30 feature. This increased visibility didn't go unnoticed by my parents, who suddenly developed a keen interest in my career. My mother began forwarding articles about TechVision, adding comments like, "So proud of our girl," despite having shown minimal interest in my work previously. My father started mentioning me to his colleagues and clients, leveraging my success to enhance his own networking opportunities. Their shift in attitude became transparent when my mother surprised me at the office one afternoon. I was in the middle of a strategy session when my assistant interrupted to say my mother was in reception. "She says she was shopping nearby and thought she'd take you to lunch," he explained, looking uncomfortable. I found Eleanor Mitchell charming, the receptionist, dressed impeccably as always. "There's my busy executive," she exclaimed, air-kissing my cheeks. "I thought we could catch up over lunch." The impromptu visit wasn't about catching up, as became evident when she steered the conversation toward the high-profile clients whose names she had gleaned from press releases. "Do you work directly with Westfield Financial? Their CEO plays golf with your father." "Mom, I can't discuss our clients," I explained for the third time as she pressed for introductions and insider information. That evening, I received a call from Sophia about an extraordinary opportunity. Global Tech, one of the largest technology companies in the world, was interested in a potential partnership that could exponentially expand TechVision's market reach. Their CEO, Jackson Reynolds, specifically asked about our operations systems after seeing your presentation at the Boston Tech Summit, Sophia explained. He wants to meet next month to discuss integration possibilities. Jackson Reynolds was something of a legend in the tech world, brilliant, demanding, and known for his exacting standards. At 45, he had built global tech from a modest software development firm into a multinational corporation. A partnership with his company would be transformative for Tech Vision. I want you to lead the preparation and negotiations, Sophia continued. This is right in your wheelhouse, Amanda. The next few weeks were a blur of activity as I assembled a team to prepare for the global tech meeting. We analyzed integration challenges, developed implementation timelines, and created comprehensive presentations addressing every aspect of the potential partnership. I worked 16-hour days, fueled by the opportunity to shape a deal that could define my career. 2 days before the scheduled meeting, I received a call from my father. Amanda, your mother and I heard about the global tech negotiations through Jeffrey Barnett, he said, naming a business associate. Very impressive. I frowned, wondering how confidential information had leaked into my father's social circle. Since Reynolds will be in town, he continued, we thought it would be perfect to host a dinner at our home the night before your meeting. More relaxed than a conference room, don't you think? A chance to make a personal connection. My stomach tightened. Dad, this is a sensitive business discussion. It's not appropriate to. Nonsense. Business is built on relationships. Your mother is already planning the menu. We've invited a few key people, nothing too formal, just 20 or so guests who might be valuable connections. The familiar pressure descended, the unspoken expectation that I would agree, that I would participate in their social machinations because that's what dutiful daughters do. But this wasn't about forgetting my birthday or canceling personal plans. This was my professional reputation. I appreciate the thought, I said carefully, but I need to follow proper business protocols. Amanda, my father's voice hardened slightly, Jackson Reynolds and I have a mutual acquaintance who speaks very highly of him. This dinner could smooth the way for your meeting. Surely you don't want to miss that opportunity? In the background, I could hear my mother, tell her the Harises will be there, their daughter works at Global Tech in some technical role. I closed my eyes, calculating my options. Refusing would create a family drama that would distract me before the most important meeting of my career. Agreeing meant subjecting myself to their manipulation, but perhaps I could control the situation better from the inside. Fine, I conceded. But this needs to be professional and focused on the business relationship. Not a networking free-for-all. Of course, sweetheart, my father assured me. We're just trying to help your career. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just walked into a trap of my own making. The day of the dinner arrived with an ominous text from my mother, can you come early to help set up? Around 3? Although the request irritated me, I agreed, wanting to ensure everything was appropriate for a business dinner. I arrived at my parents' home in Brookline to find absolutely nothing had been prepared. No food had been purchased, the house needed cleaning, and the dining room wasn't set up for guests. Oh good, you're here, my mother greeted me, perfectly coiffed but clearly having made no preparations. I've been so busy with the charity auction committee. I knew you'd handle everything beautifully. The realization hit me like a physical blow, nothing had changed. Despite my professional position, despite the importance of this dinner to my career, they still saw me as the family servant. Where's Tyler? I asked, noticing my brother's car in the driveway. In his room, I think, my mother replied vaguely. He's been stressed about his fantasy football league. So my 23-year-old brother was too stressed to help, but I was expected to prepare a dinner party for 20 people in 5 hours. The familiar anger rose in my chest, but with it came something new, a cold clarity about exactly what was happening. I need your credit card, I said to my mother. And I'm calling in professional help. Using my corporate contacts, I arranged for emergency catering services, a cleaning crew, and a bartender. My mother protested the expense, but I cut her off. This is a business dinner, not a family potluck. It needs to be professional. While the cleaners worked, I drove to specialty markets, selecting appropriate wines and additional items to supplement the catered food. By 7 p.m., the house was immaculate, the table was perfectly set, and elegant food stations were arranged throughout the first floor. My parents emerged from their bedroom, freshly dressed and relaxed, having contributed nothing but criticism about the cost. "The flowers seem excessive," my father commented, eyeing the tasteful arrangements. "Jackson Reynolds is worth $50 billion, I replied flatly. "The flowers are appropriate." Guests began arriving at 7:30. Despite my requests for a focused guest list, my parents had invited an assortment of their friends, business associates, and random connections with tenuous links to the tech industry. I greeted each one professionally while my parents played the gracious hosts, accepting compliments for the beautiful setup. At 8 p.m., the guest of honor arrived. Jackson Reynolds was tall and lean, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. He was accompanied by his Chief Innovation Officer, Elaine Chen, and Global Tech's legal counsel. I moved to greet them, but my father smoothly intercepted, extending his hand. "Jack. Richard Mitchell. So pleased you could join us. My wife Eleanor and I are delighted to host you in our home." I watched as my father expertly maneuvered Reynolds toward a group of his associates, positioning himself as the evening's central figure. My mother slipped her arm through mine. "Amanda, the caterers need direction on when to serve the main course. And we're running low on ice. Be a dear and take care of it, would you?" Before I could respond, she glided away to join my father and Reynolds. I stood frozen for a moment, caught between professional responsibility and simmering rage. Then, mechanically, I went to the kitchen to speak with the catering staff. For the next hour, I was effectively relegated to managing the event while my parents monopolized Jackson Reynolds. Whenever I approached their circle, my mother would intercept with another task: "Amanda, Mrs. Peterson needs a refill," or "Amanda, could you check if the vegetarian options are ready?" I was bringing out a tray of desserts when I overheard my father telling Reynolds, "We've always encouraged Amanda's career ambitions. Taught her everything she knows about business strategy, didn't we, Eleanor?" My mother nodded enthusiastically. Amanda was always organizing things, even as a child. We knew she had a gift for management. Reynolds nodded politely, but I noticed his eyes scanning the room, eventually finding me with the dessert tray. Something in his expression changed, a slight narrowing of his eyes, a thoughtful tilt of his head. The breaking point came shortly afterward. I was discussing implementation timelines with Elaine Chen when my mother approached with a forced smile. "Amanda, we've had a little spill in the living room. And we need more wine for Jack's group." She handed me an empty bottle. "The Bordeaux, I think. Jack seems to prefer it." I felt something snap inside me, the last thread of tolerance for this charade. But before I could respond, a deep voice spoke from behind us. "Actually, I'd be more interested in hearing about the automated workflow systems Ms. Mitchell developed. That's why we're considering this partnership, after all." Jackson Reynolds had approached unnoticed. He looked at me, completely ignoring the empty wine bottle in my hand. "If you don't mind, Ms. Mitchell, perhaps we could discuss the integration challenges while we enjoy these desserts you're serving?" My mother's smile faltered. "Oh, Jack, Amanda can talk shop with you tomorrow at the office. Tonight is for relaxing." Reynolds turned to her with a polite but questioning expression. "I'm confused, Mrs. Mitchell. Why is your VP of operations serving drinks and cleaning spills?" The room didn't exactly fall silent, but conversations nearest us definitely quieted. My mother laughed nervously. "Well, Amanda is just helping out. Family first, you know." Reynolds didn't smile. Instead, he turned back to me. "Ms. Mitchell, I've reviewed your operational framework extensively. Your innovations in automated workflow management are exactly what global tech needs for our next expansion phase." He gestured to an empty sitting area. "Shall we discuss integration timelines now, boss? I have some thoughts on the API structure you proposed." The word hung in the air, boss, spoken with genuine respect to the daughter my parents had reduced to serving drinks. My father materialized at my mother's side, his expression a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. Jack, perhaps we should all sit down, he suggested smoothly. I'd be happy to join this discussion. Reynolds gave him a measured look. With all due respect, Mr. Mitchell, this is a specialized technical conversation. Unless you've recently acquired expertise in API integration and automated workflow systems? My father faltered. Well, no, but as Amanda's father. As MS. Mitchell's father, I'm sure you're very proud, Reynolds interrupted, his tone pleasant but firm. Her operational framework increased TechVision's efficiency by 40% while reducing overhead. That's why I requested this partnership meeting specifically with her team. He turned back to me. I hope you don't mind talking business at a social event, Ms. Mitchell, but I'm particularly interested in your thoughts on scalability. As Reynolds guided me to the sitting area, I caught a glimpse of my parents' faces, shocked, confused, and suddenly uncertain of their standing in their own home. For the next hour, Reynolds, Elaine Chen, and I discussed business while my parents hovered awkwardly on the periphery, unable to contribute or reclaim control of their dinner party. When Reynolds finally rose to leave, he shook my hand firmly. I look forward to our meeting tomorrow, Ms. Mitchell. Based on our conversation tonight, I'm even more convinced that our companies will work well together. At the door, he turned to my parents with a polite smile. Thank you for hosting, Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. You must be incredibly proud of your daughter's accomplishments. Her leadership has transformed TechVision into exactly the kind of innovative partner global tech has been seeking. After the door closed behind him, the remaining guests quickly made their excuses and departed, sensing the shift in atmosphere. I stood in the foyer of my parents' home, no longer the invisible servant but someone they suddenly didn't recognize, or know how to control. Well, my father said finally, his voice strained, that went well, don't you think? I picked up my purse and coat. The meeting is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I need to prepare. I walked to the door, then paused and turned back. Thank you for hosting. The caterers will handle cleanup. I've already paid them. I left without waiting for a response, knowing that something fundamental had changed, not just in how they saw me, but in how I saw myself. The global tech meeting the following day exceeded all expectations. Jackson Reynolds brought his entire executive team and came prepared with specific questions about implementation and integration. By noon, we had established the framework for a partnership valued at $50 million in the first phase alone. Your operational systems are exactly what we've been looking for, Reynolds said as we concluded. The scalability and customization potential is remarkable. When I returned to TechVision's offices, Sophia was waiting with champagne. We did it, she exclaimed, pouring glasses for the team. Amanda, Reynolds specifically mentioned your presentation as the deciding factor. He said he's never seen such thorough operational planning. I accepted the praise with a mixture of pride and lingering tension from the previous evening. That night, alone in my apartment, I finally allowed myself to process what had happened at my parents' house, the familiar manipulation, the attempted exploitation of my professional connection, and the unexpected intervention that had shifted the power dynamic so dramatically. A week later, Sophia called me into her office. I have news, she said, her expression serious. The board met this morning. In light of the global tech deal and your overall contribution to TechVision's growth, we're creating a new position. She slid a document across the desk. Vice President of Operations, reporting directly to me. The compensation package reflects your value to this company. The number on the page made me blink. At 25, I would be earning more than my father. News of my promotion spread quickly through Boston's business community, eventually reaching my parents. My father called, his voice jovial. Congratulations, Mandy. Vice President, that's my girl. Your mother and I are so proud. We always knew you were destined for success. I thanked him politely but briefly, claiming a meeting as an excuse to end the call. Over the next few weeks, my parents made numerous attempts to reconnect, invitations to dinner, suggestions of family vacations, even talk of holiday plans months in advance. Their sudden interest in my life might have seemed genuine to an outsider, but I recognized the pattern. I had become a valuable asset rather than a convenient servant. 3 months after the global tech deal, my parents invited me to a small family dinner to celebrate my success. Just us, my mother promised. No guests, no networking. We want to hear all about your work. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I arrived, I was surprised to find that my mother had actually cooked, something she rarely did when I lived at home. Tyler was there too, unusually subdued. The conversation was strained at first, with my parents making awkward attempts to ask about my work while avoiding any reference to the Reynolds dinner. After dessert, my father cleared his throat. "Amanda, your mother and I have been thinking. We may not have always appreciated your talents as we should have." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Is that what you call it? Not appreciating my talents?" My mother reached for my hand. "Darling, we always wanted what was best for you." What was best for me? The words escaped before I could contain them. Was it best for me to miss my senior prom to serve drinks to your business associates? Was it best for me to cancel my 10th birthday party to clean the house for Dad's boss? Was it best for me to work as your unpaid housekeeper while Tyler never had to lift a finger? My father's expression hardened. "We gave you a good home, an excellent education." "I earned my scholarship to Wharton," I interrupted. "I worked 3 jobs to pay for what the scholarship didn't cover." "You contributed nothing." "That's unfair, Amanda," my mother said, her voice taking on the wounded tone I knew so well. "We raised you to be responsible and capable. Look how well you've turned out. Clearly, we did something right." "No," I said quietly. "I turned out well despite your treatment, not because of it. Do you have any idea what normal parents do? They don't make their children miss milestones to serve as unpaid help. They don't ignore their achievements while praising their compliance. They don't exploit their professional connections for social gain." A heavy silence fell over the table. Tyler stared at his plate, uncomfortable but not disagreeing. "We never meant to hurt you," my father finally said, his voice less certain. "We thought we were preparing you for life." "By treating me like a servant?" I asked. "What kind of preparation was that supposed to be?" My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "You're being melodramatic, Amanda. We had expectations of you, as all parents do." "Different expectations than you had of Tyler," I pointed out. "He never had to earn his place in this family." At that, Tyler looked up. "She's right," he said, surprising everyone. I never realized how unfair it was until that night with Reynolds. When he called Amanda boss and talked about her accomplishments, I suddenly saw how you've always treated her compared to me. He turned to me. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I should have said something sooner." His unexpected support loosened something in my chest, a knot of loneliness I hadn't fully acknowledged. "I'm not here to assign blame or demand apologies," I said after a moment. "But going forward, things need to change. I won't be your unpaid help, your social secretary, or your connection to powerful people. If you want a relationship with me, it needs to be based on mutual respect." My parents exchanged glances, seemingly at a loss without their usual scripts of guilt and obligation. "What exactly are you saying?" my father asked cautiously. "I'm saying that I'll visit for normal family gatherings if I'm treated as a guest, not staff. I'm saying that I won't discuss my professional contacts or leverage my position for your benefit. I'm saying that I'm your daughter, not your employee or your networking opportunity." My mother looked genuinely distressed. "But families help each other, Amanda. That's what love is." "No, Mom. That's what exploitation is. Love is mutual and respectful. It doesn't keep score or extract payment." I stood up, suddenly exhausted by the conversation. "I should go. Thank you for dinner." My father rose as well. This is ridiculous. After everything we've done for you. Richard, my mother interrupted, her voice unusually sharp. Stop. He looked at her in surprise. Maybe, she said slowly, we should listen to what Amanda is saying. It wasn't acceptance or understanding, but it was a crack in the foundation, a small acknowledgement that perhaps they didn't have the right to demand my servitude anymore. As I gathered my things to leave, Tyler walked me to the door. I meant what I said, he told me quietly. I never realized how different things were for you. I'm really proud of what you've accomplished. I hugged him, recognizing that he too had been shaped by our parents' uneven expectations, just in a different way. Thanks, Ty. That means a lot. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. The conversation hadn't resolved everything, decades of family dynamics don't change in a single evening, but I had finally given voice to my experience and set boundaries for moving forward. Whether my parents could respect those boundaries remained to be seen, but for the first time I wasn't responsible for managing their feelings about it. I drove away from my childhood home not with the door closed on my family relationships, but with the possibility that they might eventually evolve into something healthier, something where I was valued for who I was, not what I could do for them. 1 year after the confrontation with my parents, I sat in my office at TechVision reviewing quarterly reports. The global tech partnership had exceeded projections, bringing both companies substantial growth and positioning me as a rising star in the tech industry. At 27, I was leading a team of 30 people and mentoring young professionals who reminded me of myself a few years earlier. The changes in my professional life were significant, but the evolution in my personal life felt even more profound. With the help of my therapist, Dr. Samantha Reed, I had begun to unpack the layers of my childhood exploitation and its lasting effects on my self-worth and relationships. You've internalized the belief that your value lies in your productivity, Dr. Reed had observed in one of our early sessions. That's why you overwork, why you struggle to relax, and why you feel guilty when you're not being useful. She was right. Even after achieving financial success and professional recognition, I still found myself unconsciously seeking validation through achievement and service. I still automatically washed dishes at friends' dinner parties. I still apologized when asking for help. I still felt uncomfortable when receiving gifts or compliments. These are normal responses to your upbringing, Dr. Reed assured me. The good news is that recognizing these patterns is the first step toward changing them. With her guidance, I developed strategies for identifying manipulation and practiced setting healthy boundaries. I learned to recognize the difference between genuine requests for help and exploitative demands. Most importantly, I began to understand that my worth wasn't tied to my usefulness to others. At work, I channeled these insights into concrete policies. TechVision had always had a progressive culture, but under my influence, we implemented structural supports for work-life balance, flexible hours, generous parental leave, mental health days, and a strict no-email after-hours policy unless truly urgent. The most efficient employees are well-rested and fulfilled, I explained when presenting these policies to the board. Burnout doesn't just hurt people, it hurts the bottom line. Sophia, who had always been a supportive boss, became an even closer ally as we navigated TechVision's expansion. You've transformed not just our operations but our culture, she told me after a particularly successful quarter. People want to work here because they know they'll be valued as humans, not just producers. My relationship with my parents evolved gradually. After our confrontation dinner, there was a period of awkward distance as they adjusted to the new boundaries. My mother called less frequently but sent occasional texts that didn't include requests for favors. My father forwarded articles related to my industry without suggesting I leverage the information for his benefit. Our first post-confrontation holiday was Thanksgiving, which I agreed to attend with clear parameters. I would arrive as a guest, not early to help cook, and I would stay at a hotel rather than in my old room. To my surprise, my parents respected these boundaries. My mother hired caterers, and though she made a few comments about the expense, she didn't ask me to take over any tasks. Tyler had undergone his own transformation. Our conversation had sparked a self-awareness that led him to examine his role in the family dynamic. He had moved out of our parents' home, found a job in marketing, and begun to develop independence that had been discouraged during his upbringing. "I never learned basic life skills," he admitted during a lunch we shared. "Mom still does my laundry when I visit. It's embarrassing." I helped him create a crash course in adulting, teaching him to cook simple meals, manage finances, and handle household maintenance. Our relationship, once defined by the disparity in our treatment, grew into something more balanced and authentic. By spring, I had enough emotional distance to invite my parents to TechVision's annual gala. They accepted eagerly, clearly viewing the invitation as progress. At the event, I watched them navigate a world where I was respected and influential, a reality that still seemed to surprise them. "Your team speaks so highly of you," my mother commented, a note of genuine pride in her voice. "They're extraordinary people," I replied. "I'm lucky to work with them." "Not luck," my father said unexpectedly. "You've earned their respect." It was perhaps the most straightforward acknowledgement he had ever given of my professional accomplishments. I thanked him, recognizing the effort it took for him to see me as successful in my own right rather than as an extension of his influence. As I rebuilt my relationship with my family on healthier terms, I also began exploring new personal connections. I had always kept people at a distance, afraid of being exploited or disappointed. But therapy had given me tools to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy relationships. I met Nathan Harris at a nonprofit fundraiser where TechVision was a sponsor. As the organization's program director, he spoke passionately about using technology to address educational inequality. His intelligence and genuine commitment to making a difference attracted me, but what truly set him apart was his attentiveness to others' needs without expectation of return. Our first date was revealing. When I automatically began clearing plates at the restaurant, he gently placed his hand over mine. "You don't have to do that," he said. "Let's just enjoy the evening." It was the first of many moments where Nathan helped me recognize when I was slipping into caretaking patterns. He valued my thoughts and feelings more than what I could do for him, a novel experience that sometimes made me uncomfortable but ultimately helped me grow. As my personal life expanded, I also found ways to use my experience to help others. I started a mentorship program for young women from disadvantaged backgrounds, teaching them not just business skills but how to recognize their own worth and set healthy boundaries. "Success isn't just about working hard," I told them. "It's about working smart and valuing yourself enough to demand fair treatment." I shared my story selectively, not as a bid for sympathy but as a roadmap for others who might be trapped in exploitative family or work situations. Through a series of workshops called Breaking the Servitude Cycle, I helped people identify manipulation tactics and develop strategies for establishing independence. The holidays continued to be challenging, laden with old expectations and patterns, but each year became easier as new traditions replaced the old. I hosted Thanksgiving at my apartment, inviting friends, colleagues, and family members who were willing to participate as equals rather than according to hierarchical roles. "Everyone contributes, everyone enjoys," became our motto, with tasks distributed according to preference and ability rather than gender or status. 2 years after the confrontation dinner, my mother called with news. She and my father had begun marriage counseling. "We've been talking about family patterns," she said hesitantly. "The therapist suggested that we might have some unhealthy dynamics to address." It wasn't an apology or even a direct acknowledgement of how they had treated me, but it was a step towards self-awareness that I hadn't expected. I expressed support for their process without offering to facilitate it, another boundary that would have been impossible for me to maintain in the past. The journey of healing wasn't linear. There were still family gatherings where I found myself automatically loading the dishwasher while male relatives watched TV. There were still moments when I worked through weekends because I felt guilty about taking time for myself. There were still occasions when I apologized for having needs or expressing opinions. But increasingly, I caught myself in these patterns before they became entrenched. I reminded myself that rest is not a reward for productivity but a necessary component of well-being. I practiced saying no without explaining or justifying. I learned to accept help without feeling obligated to reciprocate immediately. Most importantly, I discovered that my capacity for joy expanded as I released the belief that I existed to serve others. I took a painting class despite having no artistic talent. I traveled solo to countries I'd always wanted to visit. I spent entire Sundays reading novels without a shred of guilt. I built friendships based on mutual enjoyment rather than usefulness. The greatest lesson from my journey was understanding that true family, whether blood relations or chosen connections, is built on mutual respect and support, not obligation or service. The people who truly love you want you to thrive, not just function. They celebrate your successes without trying to claim credit. They offer help without keeping score. Looking back on the path from family servant to respected executive, I realized that the skills I had developed under duress, efficiency, problem-solving, resilience, had indeed served me well in my career. But I had succeeded despite the exploitation, not because of it. No child should have to earn their place in a family through unpaid labor and sacrificed opportunities. If you're watching this and recognizing patterns from your own life, the uneven distribution of family responsibilities, the expectation that your needs come last, the conditional love based on your usefulness, please know that you deserve better. Your worth isn't measured by how much you do for others. You don't have to earn the right to be treated with dignity and respect. What part of my story resonated most with you? Have you experienced similar family dynamics or witnessed them in others' lives? Drop a comment below to share your thoughts. If this video helped you recognize unhealthy patterns in your own relationships, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content on building healthy boundaries and recognizing your true worth. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that they deserve to be valued for who they are, not just what they can do for others. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you are enough, exactly as you are.